What's good with the YouTube of Converse Perspective? It's your boy Flacco coming live and direct, smashing, dashing, sliding on through with my co-host, Big Senor Rojo, with a little bit of energy. What's cracking, people, man? We got an interesting article, man. We're going to get straight to it. Without further ado, we're going to be talking about an incident regarding some Bakersfield Nortenos that were recently indicted. At the end of this, we're going to give our perspective to this case, as well as go back to a little bit of the history that the NS influence had out there in Bakersfield at one time.
All right, man. This article is from kget.com. It's a news station, I'd assume down south somewhere. It's by Jason Kotowski on June 23rd of this year. Bakersfield, California. On January 14th, Carlos Trejo received a phone call from an associate in jail. The man in custody said he was relaying a message that from the homies, that things were hella dry and for Trejo to put in work, according to documents. While the contents of this message may not mean much to the average resident, Bakersfield police say that it constituted an order from a higher-ranking gang member telling this individual to commit crimes to benefit the Northside Bakers, a Norteño-based gang of which he is a member. The following day, Trejo and Jorge Flores embarked on a crime spree, committing shootings that left 2 men dead and two others wounded within a 7-hour period. Both Trejo and Flores have pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of murder, 3 counts of attempted murder, and other charges filed in connection with the shootings. Both are being held without bail and have a hearing scheduled for Friday. Surveillance video captured footage of a white Lexus sedan police say the 2 used as they drove around looking for victims. An examination of bullet casings left at the crime scene showed that they were fired from the same weapon. Flores, following his arrest, admitted to being with Trejo in the Lexus on the days when the apparently random shootings happened. And this is according to documents provided by said detective. They also recovered data on his phone linking him and his co-defendant to the crimes. A man was riding a bike the night of January 15th when a white sedan approached him at the intersection of Cannon Avenue and Cottonwood Road. The car stopped next to the bicyclist, and the front passenger asked, "Where are you from?" The question referred to gang affiliation, according to the police. The bicyclist told the passenger he wasn't in a gang. The passenger then pulled a gun and fired, hitting him multiple times. He described the car and passenger, but he didn't see the driver. The bicyclist claimed he did not know the suspect and advised he had never seen him before. Bakersfield Police Detective Randy Petrus wrote in court filings. 20 minutes later, a shooting occurred on Meeks Avenue that killed 1 man and wounded another. Vladimir Sanchez, 27, was pronounced dead at the scene. Both men were sitting in a parked BMW when the shots were fired. The wounded man, interviewed at Kern Medical, told police he got out of the BMW after he was hit, but was unable to see the shooter. More than 6 hours passed before the third and final shooting. Police arrived at an apartment complex around 5:30 a.m. January 16th to find a man shot dead in a parking lot on Taylor Street near Bell Terrace. The slain man was identified as Scotty Tripp, 28 years old. Tripp's brother told police the 2 had left an apartment when Tripp turned around and went back inside while he got in the car. Tripp came back out and was walking through the parking lot when 2 men approached him. The men shot Tripp and then ran, the brother said. He told police he followed the men in his car until they fired at him. He was uninjured. Investigators reviewed surveillance footage and saw a white sedan in the area that matched the description of the suspect vehicle in the Meeks Avenue shooting, according to court documents. This video also captured the shooting. It showed 1 man fired while the other one watched. The filing said, before shooting, the man asked, "Where are you from?" In the following months, investigators compiled surveillance footage and witness statements and analyzed evidence. The 9mm casings seized from the scenes were fired from the same weapon, the filings say. The victims in at least 2 of the shootings were asked about their gang affiliation. Of special significance was the white sedan seen in the surveillance video or described by witnesses as being at each of the shootings. Investigators examined records for all traffic stops Bakersfield police made January 15th and found a 2006 white Lexus sedan had been stopped about 3 minutes after the Meeks Avenue shooting for reckless driving, according to these filings. The driver was identified as Flores and the front seat passenger as Trejo, the documents say. The men had not been arrested because at the time there was no information linking them to anything other than driving recklessly. Investigators reviewed Trejo's arrest record and saw he had been in jail in December on gun and gang charges. They also saw he called Baker's police last year to report an auto theft. The phone number he used to make that call was cross-checked with calls made from the jail. Detectives found numerous calls were made to his number from one of the men with whom he was arrested in December, the documents say. Police listened to the recorded calls and found the conversation indicating the shootings were done on behalf of the Northside Bakers. There was also a call made January 16th where Trejo boasted police pulled him over but didn't arrest him, according to the documents. He told the acquaintance he had pulled an all-nighter. Flores was placed under surveillance and taken into custody April 21st while following a tow truck that was towing the suspect vehicle, the documents say. Trejo was arrested afterward. Search warrants served on their home and vehicles found clothing believed worn during the shootings and the same brand of ammunition that was fired, according to the documents. While going through videos Flores saved to his phone, police found a recording made the morning of January 16th that showed Trejo wearing a black hoodie with a large Niner Gang logo on the chest and an E40 49ers on the left upper arm. The hoodie matches what one of the suspects wore in the surveillance video, the documents say. Police found a text message on Flores' phone sent January 17th. It said, Taurus 9mm 16 out of 17 bullet holder shoots like butter, according to the filings. A 9mm was used in the shootings. Based on the content in the message, it was apparent that Jorge Flores was bragging about the firearm or trying to get rid of it. Petrus, the detective, wrote in the filings.
Were these guys caught slipping or what?
Yeah, I mean, hey, I can't laugh. I've done dumb stuff before too, but it's like, man, something of this magnitude, that's, it's one thing to make a mistake going to steal a pullout out of somebody's car, you know what I'm saying? Or, man, when you're doing things of that nature, bro, there's no room for any kind of flaws, and that's just riddled with ignorance, bro.
Besides this case, right, I'm gonna talk about Bakersfield real quick, bro. Bakersfield at one time traditionally was a split. It was a borderline. It was known as the invisible borderline between Norte and Sur. And at one time, there was a lot of NF members from Bakersfield. A lot. It was a hotbed. They're in Fresno. Fresno, Salinas, and San Jose were extreme hotbeds, man. I mean, that's where DC actually got shot when they went to move on Chalo. Actually, the NF member Dave Morris was killed. Then a civilian that was on medical leave. I think it was Memorial Day weekend. I want to say 77 or 78. As well as Bakersfield back in the 80s when they had the split between the Bobble faction as well as the Black Bob issue. A lot of those fell out wayside that sided with Bobble. So a lot of them fell out of favor at that time, as well as a lot of them started to side with crackers as well. So at one time, Bakersfield had a huge amount of Nortenos. Somewhere around the 90s, it started to die out. It was very rare that you would ever meet a homeboy, a Norteño from Bakersfield. It would be traditionally a Sureño city. Sometime in the 90s is when it became known, Baker's Coleno Trece and all these hoods out there, it became known as a Sureño town. And so what I'm seeing now, there's a trend here that you're seeing throughout the United States. Norteños are starting to migrate into different areas and they're setting up shop now. So now there's a little insurgence that is occurring out there in Bakersfield to where, according to this article, according to even the clothing the person's wearing, he's wearing the Niner gear, the black hoodie. They're recognized as Northside Bakers, a Norteño clique out there. So I'm going to sit there and say that Nortenos have migrated and now they're basically homegrown again in Bakersfield again. That's what I'm taking from this article. I've seen people in comments talk about this. Some people from Bakersfield say there's no Nortenos out there in Bakersfield. Others say, no, there is now. So what I'm going to, okay, we're going to give a perspective of this, right? Besides the crime, we'll talk about the crime, man. This is commonly out there. We already know a lot of youngsters do stuff just like this. I'm going to think with surrounding areas like Delano, Tulare County, and Bakersfield being a big city, what ends up happening is the same thing that happened with Washington, Idaho, Utah, all these cities. Homeboys from like Greenfast, they moved to Utah. That was a big thing. Homeboys from Stockton back in the days, they moved out there to Washington. Different areas, homeboys start to migrate. And being that they're close to Delano, which has a strong Norteño faction, as well as Tulare County, I could see homeboys moving out that way to Bakersfield and slowly starting to sew up shop and allow them to establish their own hood out there again. So where the Norteños were looked at as being dead out there in Bakersfield, not existing anymore, according to this article, they're out there and they're getting active out there in the streets.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Like you said, it was rare to meet anybody from Bakersfield. I only recall meeting one individual ever from Bakers that was all good on the yard, et cetera. But like you said, man, it has a rich history. It was traditionally the dividing point. But man, back in the days, it actually leaned real hard toward the north. And like Flacco said, man, it started changing. I'm not exactly sure when. Flacco says the 90s, and I'll probably concur with that just because Flacco knows stuff, straight up.
Well, the 80s, you started to have the separation, brother. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. There was a little separation. A lot of them actually, there was an issue that happened in San Quentin with the Bakersfield boys in there. Where there was a conflict with the NF and stuff like that actually occurred. And a lot of that ended up being an NF member that fell out of favor. And what ends up happening is the same thing happened like with Crackers. When Crackers and them kind of fell out of favor within the organization, you're going to reach out to the homies. And right. So that's a big thing that ended up happening with Bakersfield and why they lost a stronghold out there, as well as a lot of NF dropouts moved out to Bakersfield in the 70s and 80s. Like I told you about the incident. They had hit squads, man, with like all kinds of people, Indio Vidiola, DC, Copas, all these old school NF members that we know and we heard of, man, they were out there headhunting, trying to kill Chalo and a couple others out there. They ended up having 2 shootings on Memorial Day weekend out there where 2 people ended up getting killed. One of them was an active NF member because the inactives out there weren't playing because they knew that their lives were at risk. Because that was a time era on the streets when the NF was just killing their own left and right. So somewhere along there were still Norteños out there in Bakersfield in the 80s. Somewhere between the late 80s to 90s, it just started to branch away. And I think maybe even the Fresno Bulldog split had a lot to do with it. I could be wrong on that, but I've heard different theories about that. As well as there's been also other influential members that walked away in the 80s, like I said. And what ends up happening, this gave the MA and the Sureños an area for them to concentrate in recruiting. Whenever there's a divide and conquer issue, where there's conflict amongst these groups, it gives other groups an opportunity to go out there and infiltrate.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, like you're saying, man, I don't think they've ever gone away. I think, the numbers have definitely gotten extremely low comparatively, like, a drop in the bucket to what they once were. But I think they've been around, probably at least a couple little hoods, a lot of individuals. Some of them, might have been doing time in prison. They might just be maintaining an extremely low profile and actually, living in Bakersfield, but, functioning in different little areas around there that are more, let's call it friendly to their, affiliations. But there's definitely homeboys down there. Northside Bakers, it's been around. It probably not going nowhere, but people getting wrapped up. And when you have small numbers to begin with, let's say there's only one hood. Let's say there's only one really active hood down there. Man, how many people do you got in the hood? How many people could be locked up at any given time? You know what I'm saying? And it just takes the right, few people on the streets to get things back, in order. If your main 3 big homies are locked up, yeah, the hood's gonna be stagnant. You know what I mean?
As well as other homeboys. I have homeboys from my hood that moved out there to Bakersfield. That actually moved out there. And that can be a common trend too, is when you have homeboys coming in, say from Milpas, from Sanjo, from Stockton, You're going to run into homeboys. And as soon as you see a homeboy, you already know you're in enemy territory. What are you going to do? You're going to congregate. You're going to interact. You're going to start to socialize with those that you feel a common interest with, if that makes any sense.
Right.
And like I said, Delano's not that far. So it doesn't take many people to move into an area in Bakersfield, start to lace up the youngsters, have nephews, have brothers who start banging that area. Now you have a gang formed. It's as simple as that. But Bakersfield's always had a lot of Nortenos, but somewhere around the 90s, it just was overtaken by Sureños. I still believe the majority of the town is probably Sureños. You know what I'm saying? Probably like 90%. But all you need is a small faction out there to be even prevalent, to be even recognized, to be even a factor out there. I mean, you don't need a 500-man hood or something like that, or 200-man hood. This isn't Los Angeles where you have a hood on every block with about 1,000 members. I mean, these are rural areas. So the hoods out there, they're small. And so anytime you have small hoods out there, a lot of times these hoods are actually going at it with other hoods. Like they have Crips, they have Bloods, they have Asian gangs, they have Sureños fighting each other. This gives opportunity for any group to come up in there and infiltrate and establish and set up shop, especially if you have people going in there incognito. You know what I'm saying? And trying to just slowly starting to slowly educate. You start to build your numbers. The same way the upstate Sureños were able to infiltrate, you know, up north, is the same way they can start to take things down south. Let's start to build our numbers. Now you have homegrown Bakers Norteños. The same thing you have in Utah, Washington, Idaho, all these areas where Norteños are prevalent is the same thing that you can have as far as in southern areas. It's not going to go much further than Bakersfield, man. You get what I'm saying? But according to this article, these youngsters were out there and they were putting in some work.
Yeah, hey man, while you were talking, I was just thinking that it's like, man, if you go back to the, I remember running into the first Sureños in the Bay Area in '92 in Juvenile Hall from Richmond. You know what I mean? Then maybe a year or so later, Concord. They were around a couple years before that. Don't get me wrong; it ain't like I ran into the first ones, but you know how they came up to the north, you know, Richmond, Concord, and established and built a stronghold. You know what I mean? That, man, they had to be on their P's and Q's. And that's where we talk about, oh no, me no claim, me paisa. That's how they infiltrated, bro. And that's how they grew. They kept it real discreet. They weren't all out there. They were trying to blend in and acting like regular Mexicanos, you know what I mean? Then all of a sudden, once they felt like they had enough pull or juice or power to represent, man, a month later, they're out there and now you could tell they're Sureños. I can't imagine trying to establish in a place like Bakersfield. It seems like it would be extremely difficult. There'd be massive challenges, bro. But you'd have to play the same role, bro. You'd have to be.
It's a big city, though. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
and like I said, I've known homeboys
to move
out there. So that's the first thing I would be thinking. Like if I was in an area like that, I'm just thinking of me for a recruiting basis. Mm-hmm. Like say if we go out there, we're supposed to set up shop. We go out there with a bunch of nephews and nieces and all that stuff, man. They start going to school. We start interacting with kids. You start to, and you know what I mean? You start to form that gang culture. You know what I'm saying? That you have, and you pass it on and that representation. I mean, that's how a lot of these Sureño hoods actually were established up north, were people that moved from Southern California up north and decided to recruit the local people who just moved in those areas as Sureños. That's why you have like the Playboys out there. That's why you had the Biggie's Town. That's why you had Clanton. You had all these hoods. They didn't just come out of their own. I mean, a few hoods just were able to create themselves because they heard about the Sureños and Trece, and they just looked at Nortenos as enemy. But the same thing could be said here. You have a couple of homeboys from Salinas and San Juan that move out there, and then they start working together. You start running into them. A couple been to the joint. They go out there. Man, it doesn't take long to start setting up shop, man. It's starting to recruit and to push that line.
Yeah, I've never been one into like so much advertising, you know, like, you know, and especially in that situation, man, I wouldn't be out there wearing all red. You wouldn't even know I was a homeboy if I was down there whatsoever. You know, you gotta that's enemy lines, bro, you know. And you know, I can compare that to how the Southerners had it in Concord at first. You know, they were, man, every direction they turned, it was homeboys. There's a lot of hoods in Concord. There's 6, 7, 8 northern hoods, you know what I mean? And they had one little spot. And anywhere they went, bro, they were liable to get the business. You know what I mean? Like you gotta move carefully down in places like that, man. And I'm not surprised that they're still out there, you know, because man, you're never gonna eradicate everybody, you know what I mean? But this whole shooting thing, man, I don't quite get the the goal of it. You know, I mean, what's the goal? If you're at war, I get it. If not, if you're trying to establish, they're saying it's, you know, the phone call said it's dry out there. Well, make some money. You know, that doesn't seem like, I don't know. I, I don't understand the action they took. Maybe I'm missing something, but you know, if I got those directives that it's dry, I would think it's time to produce cash.
Well, you don't know what they mean by it though, too. It could
Yeah,
be a
there
certain
could be
little
some
code.
little code, man, but how
You know,
much go engaging with somebody in a neighborhood like that, in a city like that, that outnumber you 500 to 1, I don't understand what they think they would accomplish by that. All that's going to cause is a mass retaliation that you might not be able to survive.
yeah, we don't know the details of it. We don't know too much about this. We're just giving perspectives. I mean, for all we know, they could be 30, 40 deep and we don't even know it. You know what I mean? It doesn't sound like it though, man. I want to look at Rolo smirking his face. Hey, you know, there is what you call cleanup though, too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like you said, there has to be an objective in it, man. So either they're being directed by wrong leadership or they just took the matters into their own hands. You know, I think any homeboys nowadays, the way that these street regiments are set up and how they interact with neighborhoods a lot more than they did years ago, I would have to say that they had to have been in communication with somebody. You know what I mean, I would think traditionally that would have to probably be Delano. Delano's not that far from Bakersfield, and Delano is a Norteño stronghold.
Yeah.
So
we
they
just went
have to
through
have.
there on the way back from Vegas, man. It's real close.
Yeah, it's not that far at all. So that's what I'm saying. With having the homeboys from Delano not that far, I'm pretty sure the Delano homeboys go at it with the cats from Bakersfield and all that stuff, and vice versa. And I'm sure that they probably lend support to the Nortenos that are out there in Bakersfield. You know, for all we know, these individuals may not even be from this North Side Bakersfield. They may be Nortenos from other areas that live out there that just wanted to put in some work. We don't know. But I'm going to sit there. From what I'm hearing, I've seen in the comments from a couple people who said, no, there's actually Nortenos in Bakersfield nowadays, you know, and there always was. So I'm thinking traditionally they're going back to the roots of their neighborhoods out there, and there's some type of insurgents. It doesn't take much. I mean, this is a debatable issue. You're probably going to have some Sureños out there that are going to be like, oh, they're not that deep, or they're not out here anymore, or they're hiding. Well, so be it. It is what it is. But according to this article, how they have them identified, they're out there and they're getting active. This wasn't no weak shooting. They had a couple shootings involved in this.
Yeah, no, they went on a little one-night mission, bro, for no doubt. Yeah, Bakersfield, man, it just seems like a rough place for homeboys to be. You know, we were just down there and all I seen was Southerners everywhere I looked, you know. And this is just brief stop to a gas station and brief stop to get something to eat. We actually ran into some Sureños who knew who we were, you know, they were cool as shit. Shout out to them dudes. I'm not gonna put their name out there, but I see you. That's a rough place to be for a homeboy, you know.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. They definitely migrated a little bit to the north, you know, and
well, they're not saying in the article who the victims are. And the last names, if you listen to the last name of the victims,
yeah, one of them was white.
They didn't sound like Hispanic last names.
Yeah, one of them was, one of them wasn't. I don't remember the other one.
No.
Anyway, yeah, there's man, I've always known that there's gonna be a few straggler type that's never gonna leave Bakersfield. And yeah, there could be many, man. If you guys are out there in the comments, north, south, it don't matter. We don't care about stuff like that. Let us know what the scene's like in Bakersfield. And man, don't shoot people unless you absolutely have to. That's today's lesson. Because you're gonna sit down, all the mistakes that people make, you think you're not gonna make them. You know how many times I hear about people getting caught by cell phone location, this and that. Oh, well, I wasn't on my phone. It doesn't matter. Your Google is tracking your movements. Your Snapchat's tracking your movements. Your Instagram, all those things. you're gonna make mistakes. And
They
the
should have
police are
been
gonna
listening.
be on that shit. Police
They
are
should have
gonna,
been they should have been listening to Sheila, bro. Instead of now they're gonna be having to hire Sheila.
yeah. So the police are gonna, man, when it comes to a 187 murder case, they have so many different things they're gonna throw at you. They have extra funding for Operation Safe Streets and things like that to get this technology to go through everything, man. And just you don't got to worry about that stuff if you're just out there
No.
doing the right thing, my guy. So be careful with what you do. Maybe think about where you're going in life. And that'll be today's positive message. Because, hey, I'm not worried about no murder cases. You know what I'm saying? They can check my phone. Anyway, have a good day, you two. It's your boy Rojo, Big Flacco, and we're out of this piece.